Okay, so this is how I would probably go about doing it. First of all, um, I would go find a 3D object. So, Turbo Squid is a great location. Um, Unfortunately, it's paid content, so typically I will try and find it for really cheap or free. I suppose if you needed to, if it was a paid project, you could go to Upwork.com and commission somebody to make it. But in this case, I did find a 3D object for Motorhead. Somebody has made a ring, and I think it's kind of perfect for the project. You can see it with different skins on it. Although you would probably want to put a chrome skin on it. The other thing I would do is I would bring this 3D object in and I would use a free program like Blender just to cut this back part off. Um, and that would make it easier. So there's what it looks like with Chrome on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do for the purposes of this demonstration is actually use a Lego person. And I'll just step you through the project from scratch. The first thing I would do is create a composition. So a new composition, I don't know how long you want it to last, but I don't think it needs to last more than like 4 seconds for a full rotation. And again, without knowing anything else about what you've got going on, I'd create a standard HD image with a black background. So 4 seconds, black background. You can select your color here and press OK. I also have Video Copilot installed on this. Video Copilot Elements. So it's a project. It's a plugin that I use for 3D objects in particular and lighting, and it's very, very powerful. Again, I would go to videocopilot.com and look at their tutorials, so you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. In the meantime, I'm going to go into the layers and create a new layer and a solid. And this is where I'm going to put my 3D object. So we can just call this 3D object space. Okay, so now I've got my 3D object space here. It's also got a black background, and you can change that when you actually create it. Um, going back here, so this is our primary composition. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Effects, Video Copilot, and insert an elemental scene. So this is an elemental object. It's specific to Video Copilot. So you can't do anything I'm suggesting here without Video Copilot. Then they have this thing called Scene Setup. And you get this 3D area that you can then embed into your project. I'm going to import a Lego man. And you can't see him yet, but I'm going to scale him up until we can see him. And a Lego man is getting a little bit bigger and more visible, but he's facing forward, so I'm going to orient him so that he's facing up. And I'll just turn this directly to 90 degrees so he's perfectly facing up. And then I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in, and you have to figure out how to play around with this, but between my mouse wheel rolling and clicking and my right mouse button, I'm able to manipulate them pretty well. Then again, Video Copilot also has a series of standard physical colors and textures. In this case, we want a chrome texture, and we will throw that on there. And with the standard lighting background, he's now a chrome image, which is very similar to what you had. Then I want it to have like that flaming background because I'm assuming it's going to be embedded in flames. So we can go to the environment, and this is the normal background that's causing this chrome effect, the reflections on the chrome effect. And I'm going to grab a different image that I downloaded and go in here. This is probably oversimplified, but I just found a flaming image and put that on there. So now you can see got lots of flames going on in there. And as we rotate it, the object, we will see, because what's really happening is that image is wrapped around the entire 3D space as a background, and it's being reflected off the object. So it doesn't require a whole lot of work now to get this object to look like it's in flames that are actually moving, because all we have to do is really rotate it, and you'll get that kind of flaming effect, especially if you surround it with animated flames. Okay, so I'm going to press OK. We now have our object in here. There's a bit of a distortion effect going on, but this is all of the controls we have for this 3D object. So first thing I'm going to do is correct a little bit of that distortion effect. This whole object right here, as it sits in here, is actually called a particle. Boy, I wish I could turn that off. I'm going to open the particle look itself, and then I'm going to go into particle size, X, Y, and Z, and we're going to correct, that's the height, so I'm going to undo that, and let's correct the width. No, sorry, that's the X, which is exactly what you would expect. We can zoom in on this, and it's pretty far out, so I'm going to actually zoom this or scale this up a little bit more. So let's go to the particle size, and we're just going to scale that up so we can see it a little bit better. All right, there's our particle. It's zoomed in. Now, the Video Copilot element also has this really cool feature where you can create more than one of these particles. So this whole 3D object is now a particle. I could import it a bunch of times in there and try and create it that way, but this is a nice little simple cheat. I'm going to create 4 of these objects, and you can't see them yet because they're in a point. They're in a single point, for things like explosions and stuff, but I'm going to create them as a ring, and bingo, we immediately get multiple objects here. Now, the next thing is not only was the X squished, but the Z was squished too, clearly. Sorry, so I'm going to go back down here to particle size, and I am going, where's particle size, particle size, particle size, and we're going to go to Z. What am I doing here? Particle replicator, particle look, there it is, and then particle size Z, and make that a little thicker. So now our Lego men look a little bit better. All right, and then I'm going to go back to my particle replicator, and we want to do shape scale. That's moving it in 3 dimensions. I think there's one more thing that we can do. That's the scale of X, Y, and Z. Sorry, hold on one second. I'm going to pause. Okay, there it is. It's a little confusing, but this whole thing now, all these particles together are a shape, so what I really want to do is mess with the shape scale. Okay, so there we go. All right, now that was all in group 1. Group 1 is where I imported that. Again, I can import multiple objects into different groups, but the particle generator, especially for the type of shape that you're using, is just so convenient for this. It's a perfect way to manage it. All right, so the next thing that I would do is go to world transformations, and this is going to transform all of my particles simultaneously. And so what I'm doing here is I want to do a world rotation. And so we go down here to world rotations, and then we can rotate on the x-axis, I believe. Nope. We rotate on the z-axis. Okay, always the third try. All right, see? Now that's kind of the effect my guess is that you're looking for. So now what I'm going to do is, just like anything else, I'm going to create a keyframe here. So you can see that keyframe is in here under world rotations, so world transformations. And so if I keep expanding these down here, the same object that's up there, I can, forgive me, I'm a little slow on this. It's been a while since I've been working in this environment. All right, so there's my keyframe there. And then what I want to do is, let's just say we'll have it turn 0.5 turns because the image is the same. It'll, sorry, 0.25 turns. So every quarter rotation, it's basically going to be in the exact same place. So we'll do a world rotation of 0.25, so 1/4 turn. And you can see that that happens. And then now if I run this, during that 4-second period, I will get a 1/4 rotation, and as it repeats, it'll essentially just continue to give that sort of smooth. It's got a little bit of a jitter in there, so let's see if my keyframe can be a little bit more on the edge. Maybe I didn't do that keyframe perfectly. Yeah, it's a little bit smoother. Anyway, you can get it right to the end of it and just make it perfect. Okay, so this is a nice little cool rotation effect. And the next thing, which I'm sure you're pretty familiar with, I would probably do is bring in my browser, and I would do a search on green screen flames, and then click on videos. Video Copilot also comes with a series of different flame effects, which I would recommend, but this is not too bad. Okay, so we're going to take this, and what we would do here is go to, it's been a while since I've done this, but tube downloader, let's see if these are still available. YouTube downloader, this looks like the right one, potentially. Okay, got that noise gone. And then we would download this as let's do an MOV that's probably pretty unobnoxious. And I'm going to start downloading that right now. And let me pause and I'll let you know when it's done. Alright, so that's completed. Sorry for the sound effects again. That's the price of commercial area. So, 5 megabytes. I'm going to download that now. Maybe I'm doing that wrong. Sorry. No. Okay, conversion is complete. Oh, there it is. Sorry, it just popped up an ad. Okay. So show in folder, and there it is down there, and I'm going to drag it onto my desktop. So let's get rid of this and close this down and drag this over here. Alright, now let's close all this out. I'm going to go back to my main composition and go over to my project, so you can see all my project files now. There's my main composition, and I'm actually just going to drag this file into the project. Again, if you know After Effects, you probably are understanding what I'm doing there. And I'm going to add this in here as an image, and I'm going to grow that. There you go. And maybe you want this to be in front of the object, and if we do that, then we're going to want it to be take the black out, and so we want to transform that on the layers. So we want to go to layers, transform. Oh boy, apologize, it's been a while. Switches, reveals. Actually, this is an effect. So under color correction. Alright, let me pause for a second. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Layer, effects. Nope, layer, we want to go to blending modes, right? Okay, so if we do a screen, there we go. Now it's in there in the background, and you've got the flames coming up around it, so just a standard screen effect. This video is actually like 52 seconds long, so if you wanted to increase it to 52 seconds, you could do that. Obviously, you could add more of a flaming background of a different type. The other thing that you would do is if you downloaded this flame as a green screen effect, instead of doing blending mode, um, which we can undo here and put it back to normal, you can also do what's called keying. And this is actually an effect. And with keying, you want to do keying 1.2, and you grab a little uh, you grab the screen color here and you click on the black area there, and it would key out the green screen in this case. You can see that's not awesome. You can actually affect uh, um, what the balance is and how much of the black actually gets removed. This is why we don't use black for green screens, because it's not awesome. So I would not do that for black. I would do that for a green screen, right? Um, and again, I would just set this to screen, just like we do in Photoshop, to get that nice little effect. And if you wanted to, you could put that flaming background back in and have that way in the background. Um, and of course, since that's our same as our elemental background, that's going to really distort what's going on. You could also put an animated effect in the background. Anyway, so here is a cheap, quick and dirty tutorial on how I would probably go about that project. Hope that helps. Gnostic, good luck.